Hi, my name's Jeremiah, and I thought I'd make an abridged video of Carl's videos series. He had 3 videos on oils and greases. I thought it would benefit me, and if you get something out of it, great. So first, what he does is he discusses this chart from Mobius. You can find it on esslinger.com. And here I just made a video, I made a photo of the, and I circled some of the oils that he discusses in his 3 videos. There's Mobius 910, 9010, Mobius 9020, 941, D5, which we learn is essentially outdated, I guess. And there's also 8300 down there. This chart is arranged so that the more watery oils can be found toward the top, and the more honey-like ones can be found toward the bottom. Then he goes on to discuss Epilam. Epilam, or Fix-A-Drop, which is one maker, it's for basically keeping oil, not grease, I think that he specifies that, in an exact location. Increases surface tension of the oil. It makes oil stay together. Pardon my misprint. In watchmaking, it is essential that oil stay where it's needed. He discusses, I think he discusses oil getting on a hairspring and how unacceptable that is. Please note that Epilam evaporates very quickly, so there's a method for applying the Epilam. I don't own any yet, so I look forward to getting some and getting the contraption that it comes with and learning more about that. I think he says at one point it's usually used on capstones and pallet forks, because that's, of course, a very small area. And he demonstrates how Epilam works. He does it on the end of a scalpel in his videos. Very, very fascinating. Please note, some types of Epilam need to be warmed up to use, and also it's very expensive. I haven't looked that up, but I trust what he says. Here we see he uses Mobius 9010, which is, apparently it's a very workhorse oil. He uses it in his demonstration. And you can see it there. On the right, it's used. On the left, it's not used, and it expands. He says in the video that he'll revisit that, show you the scalpel tip later on. I don't recall that he did that. It slipped his mind, I guess. And but already, only after like a minute, you can see that the Epilam is working. How it works is you apply the Epilam to the surface. It increases the surface tension, or the it seems to increase the friction of the thing it's being put on. So then he moves on. He moves on to discussing the kind of spectrum that oils fall on. So here, the second wheel, which is high tension. It's a thick pivot, comparatively, of course. A lot of force, slow-moving, very slow-moving. Such as this, it needs a high viscosity, which is to say thick oil, usually HB 1300. I think he said that's a synthetic oil. By the way, for evolution of oils throughout horology, you can look at HP 1300 being used now and not D5. So D5's kind of fallen out of favor, I suppose. For the escape wheel, which is very fast but easy to stop because it's low force and it's a thin pivot, a thin oil is needed. Otherwise, there will be too much friction. So, moving on. A rule of thumb: if metal slides against metal, such as with this setting lever, grease is used. There are exceptions, and he very charmingly says, "I know the exceptions." You can see he's anticipating objections and criticisms. So apparently there are exceptions, but it's a good rule of thumb. And he also mentions that grease will be used on the cannon pinion as it applies to the, I believe it's the hour wheel. I'm brain farting right now. Heavy rotation uses thick oil. So I think he's talking about pinions there, not the cannon pinion on the... I'm sorry. He's talking about staffs, basically. The cannon pinion sliding against the bottom I can't think of it. Just how it connects with the hour wheel. That is metal sliding against metal, so that's a grease application. And you can see I repeat, D5 isn't used much anymore. He notes that Mollycott DX is a common grease. Mobius 8300 is old. I think he says that Mollycott DX is what he prefers to use, even though others are recommending Mobius 8300. So, and he specifies always get the technical sheets for the movements you work on. That sounds like very, very sage advice. In, I think, the middle video, he's discussing Seiko movements. He calls them psycho. He notes that the Seiko manufacturer, the technical sheet, is constantly recommending Seiko oils, and he finds this very not shocking. You know, neither do I. This particular little vignette of the 3-video series is what inspired me to do this little abridged video here. I mean, I found it to be just a little masterclass in greases and or oils, I should say, and I can't remember if there's some greases here, but let's go through it. So on the left, his oilers, he's got 2 oilers here. There's 9010, which is a thin oil for escape and balance wheels. Modern ways of lube use this for the escape wheel and the second wheel. There's 9020, which is thicker than 9010. You can refer to the chart. It's below 9010 on the chart, the Esslinger Mobius chart. 9020, thicker than 9010. Old sheets use this on the second wheel. 941, that's discussed a lot later in the third video. I think it's really interesting and wonderful. 941, especially for pallet rubies or jewels. The pivot is never oiled. That's what he specifies. I'd like to learn more about that and know more about that. The pivot for the pallet fork and lever, the pallets, is never oiled, which I guess makes sense because as long as it's rust-free, it shouldn't present a problem, I suppose. But I would think that it strikes me as strange, but I'll learn more about it. HP 1300, very thick. Modern ways use this thicker oil down the gear train. I don't understand what he means by down the gear train. So I guess he means into the second wheel, I suppose. HP 750 used for modern Omegas. He doesn't say much beyond that. Silicone, which is, I guess, not an oil or a grease. He includes that in his oiler here. It is used not in the movement, but in the gaskets, waterproofing the rubber. Mollycott DX, which he prefers to Mobius 8300, is a heavy grease. I guess that's for the setting lever, like I said before. And graphite, for increasing the friction in the main barrel in automatic movements. And I think he mentioned he showed two two makers of it. There's Kluber P125 and Mobius 8201. Moving on, this is where Mobius 941 is discussed. Pallet jewels used to take Mobius 9010. Now they take Mobius 941. Don't forget to apply Epilam to the pallet jewels before you put on Mobius 941. 941 is very interesting because the viscosity varies throughout the impact of the pallets. So I guess it's varying 18,000 times an hour, which is incredible. Epilam used on the fork. Dip the entire fork in Epilam. He discusses that some people dip the entire fork. Other watchmakers will apply 1 drop, then 1 drop to the pallets, to the jewels. So he seems to think that it's better just to dip the whole thing. I emphasize he seems to say that. Latest oil invention, which is very interesting. He just mentions this as an aside. Latest oil invention is oil with UV properties. Put a UV light lamp on oil and you'll see where it's spreading. That sounds really awesome. I think he indicates that those oils are typically clear at first sight. Moving on, tip for oiling Inca block. First of all, balance staff is usually oiled with 9010. Oil should expand over the Inca block from metal to metal, but avoid getting it in the spring. So if it's just a drop there, that's too little. If it gets in the spring, that's obviously too much. And I think this might be a good application for Epilam, but I need to think more about that. Also, he mentions a good tip: refrigerator oils, and they'll last longer. So near your bench, just get one of those little tiny, I forget the volume, 1.7 cubic foot fridge, for like dormitories, that kind of thing. So again, I'm making this video really just for my own edification, but it couldn't hurt to put it out there. So I hope you got something out of it, and I thank you very much.